So today we're going to talk a little bit about controlled opposition, somewhat in terms of the elections, Trump. What I want to convey today, I wanted to talk about controlled opposition, which has bearing on relationships, politics, geopolitics, all of it. It's at the core of the whole thing. So I really wanted to shed some light on it today. As you know, these lives are like where I hatch out the rough content, and then this somehow ends up in the webinars. What I wanted to start with, and then I want to go deeply into what is controlled opposition, is that what I have seen, and what I think you all have also seen, is that more and more I have seen, in any case, that the conspiracy people have, to a very large degree, become Trump. So what we were calling the truthers and the conspiracy theorists, they have basically, to a very large extent, sort of joined Trump, to the extent that I think you can consider Trump the leader of the controlled opposition, the leader of the conspiracy. Which I want to show today is the controlled opposition. The controlled opposition in terms of politics is what we're seeing now, the conspiracy people and the truthers, who have, to a large degree, taken the full opposite of the other side, which we can see, like, for instance, Trump has gone very much to the right, to the ultra-right, religious right. And then the other side would be the liberals, which would be an example of the controlled opposition. In that is that we have the return to these fundamental values, religious values, in sort of conflict with what we would call the ultra left, which would be, among others, the LGBTQ and all of that. And so what we find between these two, and I want to explain that this is where when there is a controlled opposition, we go into a lockdown, a psychological lockdown. Because in a nutshell, the one is sort of the result of the other. So what you find in controlled opposition is that two sides sort of unconsciously sustain the other, in the form of a codependency. And there's no way out of that in terms of fighting the other on the outside, because the other on the outside is really the projection of the one on the one side. So for instance, the extreme religious fundamentalists sort of created this prison for people, and then you can sort of say that then the whole LGBTQ movement would be like a reaction to that, breaking out of that prison of religious values. So, in a way of speaking, the ultra right created this extreme left, and that is where we want to go to today in explaining that the controlled opposition creates a sort of a loop where I unconsciously create the opposition and fuel it by projecting my shadow on the other. And we think we have free will in terms of reacting on the other, but in a way, the other is mind controlling us because we are reacting to their extreme pole or state. So it really forms a what you call an infinity loop of doom, where we keep fueling the other in the exact opposites, which we end up also fighting. And we had spoken of this before when we said that Trump would become the leader of the controlled opposition. And slowly we saw people like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and people who were at the forefront of the truthers, the resistance to the other side, slowly but surely started, to follow Trump. So we saw that Trump would have become the leader of the, if you wish, the controlled opposition. So a lot of people who were caught up in the controlled opposition with the left, with the far left, you would hear things like, we don't want people to enter the schools to sort of groom the children with, things like sex change or gender philosophy and all of that. That's the side that's now has emerged from what was going on prior, when if you wish, the left was running the show. The point is that this reaction to this extreme left, if you wish, which to begin with is a sort of a creation of the extreme right, basically has gotten caught in a controlled opposition with each other. And it's called an infinity loop of doom, because if you translate it to a relationship, what you get is the same thing. You get two people sort of fighting each other, not seeing how the more you fight the other, the more you make the other more extreme, and you end up fighting it more because it's a part of your shadow that you are externalizing. So in a long story short, there is no way out of this infinity loop of doom in terms of the opposition to the other. We see this in any amount of relationship issues. If I am in a certain role, if I keep seeing a certain projection on the other, I make them become like that. But at the same time, I become the full opposite of that projection. So we remain in a lockdown. So the true lockdown is what we're witnessing now, is that we are witnessing a global controlled opposition. There's a minister, a Dutch minister, a sort of a minister, a Secretary of State of Turkish descent in Holland just resigned because of what she calls this polarization, this constant polarization between the extremes. And she apparently certain hidden communications were exposed in which this Dutch minister was speaking in a very derogatory fashion about the Turks in the Netherlands. The point of the controlled opposition is that we keep fueling the other into the extreme opposite of the state I am in. So in a relationship, if I am too much in the state of feeling rejected and jealous or whatever, then I will make the other sort of reject me and probably go and do something that warrants the projection. So we are stuck in a codependency in relationships, in politics, and now we're witnessing this at the global level. And it is going to end really bad, because the only way out The only way out is in. The only way out of a codependency based on a controlled opposition, which means that the other is determining my reactions. I can think they are my choices, but it's the other that is creating my reactions. The only way out is in, meaning that I need to go inside and find that opposite within me, and I need to what I call combustion. I need to merge these two extremes in me and find center. If not, I will keep always looking at the other, blaming the other. What is called the lesser evil, caught in the doctrine of the lesser evil, sort of saying, no, if if the other is worse than me, then I am okay. But then unconsciously, I am uh, exactly in or implosion, Rachel. Exactly. The only way out is in, where I find that side of me that is represented in the opposition outside, and I create that combustion. The combustion means then I stop projecting my opposite on the other. Burton, Kabai, welcome. So the only way out is in. So the more I try to sort of change the other based on my projections on the other, the worse I make it. So for instance, the extreme left sort of created Trump, or the controlled opposition. And so look, don't get me wrong. What we are witnessing is that obviously, a lot of people have become in favor of Trump. But the problem with the whole controlled opposition is that there is no way out of this. It's doomed to keep moving deeper and deeper into creating the worst opposite in the other, the worst version of the opposite in the other. The only way out, meaning Trump or the far right, will keep fueling the far left, and it will end up in a very dire situation. We're seeing that globally in the wars that have started, and it will become worse. But so when we say we go inside, the only way out is in, is that I realize that what I am projecting on the other is also inside of me. So in the worst case, in the example we're talking about, the ultra religious right would have to also see that what they are projecting on the left and fighting on the left, for instance, homosexuality or gender or whatever, that they also harbor that pole in themselves, not in an extreme state, but it has to be seen on the inside. If it's not recognized on the inside, it will externalize in terms of fighting the opposite on the outside and making it bigger. So if I don't go inside out, for instance, with my insecurities, I will externalize it on the other, meaning make the other untrustworthy, something that I cannot trust. So this is how important it is that the inner work is done, because if not, we will create the very thing we are running from in ourselves outside of us. People coming to me now, there's any amount of people coming for sessions in what I call financial anxiety. So I want to use that as a little example. The more financial anxiety is really an externalization of inner insecurity. But if I don't recognize it, if I don't turn it inside out and realize that it's not the financial as such that is the problem, but it's because there's insecurity inside of me that I haven't processed, then I will project on the outside what warrants that insecurity. You see, I will project on the outside financial difficulties And then because I'm not dealing with it on the inside, this goes for relationships, it goes for money, it goes for economics, it goes for everything. So we witness this locally also, where the political parties keep blaming the other, keep projecting on the other, keep looking at the other, and due to which, one, you're not able to see yourself, and two, you create in the other what you project on them. Most important is in doing that, we cannot focus on ourselves, and that is where we lose ourselves. The moment you project too much on the moment you're looking too much at the other already, you start to lose yourself. So the only way, so going back to the only way out is in, there is what people are calling the ascension, or is that we ascend within ourselves from a first person perspective to a third person, in which we can see the two sides in ourselves, because there is in us both the ultra right, which is what I call the monk, and the ultra left, which I call the flirt. In the third person, we're able to look at these two poles in ourselves and create a synergy between them, due to which we find a center, and from out of that center we can create a self-symmetry on the outside. We create something similar on the out. And if we don't do that, we keep creating the opposite in our lives. Somebody told me recently that when they were young, small, they could make it rain, and I was saying, how did you do that? And they say they would just keep saying that it's not going to rain, it's not going to rain, and it would rain. And the truth of it is it's exactly like that. If I want something too much, I drive the opposite of what I want. But if I find a center, then I stop creating the opposite and the opposition on the outside. So we are in difficult times, because if Trump is the leader of the controlled opposition, then what is going to be created on the outside is a more extreme version of that ultra left. Equally, as the ultra left couldn't realize that they created Trump and the conspiracy far right. You see, and this is exactly what is happening in the Middle East. It's happening globally. One side is calling the other the New World Order, what have you, the cabal and all of that, while the conspiracy side is stuck in this infinity loop of doom, not realizing that there is no way to go beyond this ever deepening polarization if we don't go inward. And the politics needs to hear this and apply this, because if not, all we're going to create is a level of polarization in the countries and internationally that is going to explode. So just wanted to share that with you, the how we create the very opposites if we don't deal with it on the inside. And it's happening globally, and it's happening nationally, and it's happening at the level of relationships. We will try to come with a webinar on this in the soon future, and we want to thank you for being here, and we continue with the live soon again. Thank you.